This is Gemara Baba Basra, Daf Chof Beis. We pick it up on the bottom of Chof Aleph Amid Beis. We're 4 lines from the bottom, continuing the discussion. When are you allowed to open up a business in the same mavoi that your friend already has such a business? So 4 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav Yosef, Umaydir Rav Huna, and Rav Huna admits, Rav Huna, who has the opinion that said that you could block someone from starting a business, that when it comes to those who teach Torah, you cannot stop another Rebbe from opening up. As we have learned, to Shiloh, whether you curse the next few words, as Tikilam the Yisrael Meshivin Sefer, Bitzad Sefer, that there should be one teacher next to the next teacher. Says the Gemara of should be nervous that maybe one is going to come lazy, as we've seen in the previous Gemaras that there is such a concern. And answers the Gemara the same Torah as the Dabach Beis Amar Aleph. Kinas Seifrim Tarbe Chachma. When it comes to Torah, there is no such thing. The more kina, the more potential jealousy will only increase Chachma. If he's nervous of his job, he'll work even harder. Therefore, there is no problem. Continues the Gemara on the top line of Chav Beis Amud Aleph, and says the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Umoide Rav Huna bar Rav Yeshua. Rav Huna bar Rav Yeshua admits he was one that held that you're able to stop people that aren't from your town from opening up such a store within your town. But he admits that when it comes to reichlim, that when it comes to peddlers who go from town to town selling different items, Rashi says different cosmetics, then Deloy Matzi Ma'akev, you can never stop someone. You might have your own cosmetic store, but if someone wants to come in and sell their wares, you can't stop them. Why? Damar Mar Ezra Tiki Lem the Yisrael Sheireichel Machzim Ba'Yaretz K'dei Sheitachshit Mitzuyin LeBnei Yisrael. Another takana of Ezra, that there should always be reichlim, there should always be peddlers that are allowed to go from place to place. Why? So that the Bnei Yisrael could have their necessary cosmetics. The reason being, of course, to promote shalom bayis beinish leishtai, between husband and wife. It says the Gemara of Hani Mila Adure, but this is particularly when it comes to Lahadure, from going around selling house to house, walking around with his own items. Avalak buye loi, but to open up a store, that he is not allowed to. But says the Gemara, but let's say this guy visiting with his cosmetics is a sorbamir rabbanon, then the halacha is afilu like buye nami, he's even able to set up a shop of his own cosmetics, even though there already was one in the town. Kiha de Rava Sharila de Rav Isha, as Rava allowed Rav Isha or Rav Avadia, like buye deloy kehilchasa. He allowed them to set up a shop, even though which is not kehilchasa. My time the reason is, since they are rabbanim, since they're tamidei chachamim, they are going to become tarud in their learning, and therefore, particularly, we allow them to set up a shop in order so that they don't have to walk from house to house. Meaning, really, the heter is, as we said, to walk from house to house. The problem is the Talmud Chacham needs to sit and learn Torah, and if we require him to go house to house, he's not going to be able to learn. So Rava allowed, particularly a kula for them, that they are allowed to set up shop, even though there already was such a shop. Says the Gemara, a story about 10 lines down. The first line is Tirdu G'irsayu Hari Daikuli. They were basket sellers. The Aisu Diklai LeBavel, that brought their baskets to Bavel. Asu B'nei Masa Kamakvilayu. So the people from that town came and they said, you can't sell your baskets. We already sell baskets over here. They came from elsewhere, says Ravina, and therefore they're allowed to sell to people who come from elsewhere, meaning it's the market day that day, and there's no problem selling their stuff. But says the Gemara, this was a particular heter for the Yom Deshuka, because that's when there are people that come from all over. But if not. And the Gemara clarifies even further. El zabune beshuka. Avladure lai. The heter is particularly to sell them the shuk, but to go and walk around with items that you're not allowed to do. Says the Gemara, Hanu Amarai. There were certain people that sold wool. The Atru Amra sold wool upon Nara. They brought it to the city of Pomnara. Also, the people from that town came and they said they shouldn't be allowed to sell it. Also, like made Rav Kahana, do you know who you know what the halacha is? The halacha is they could indeed prevent you from selling your items. Amruleh, they said to Rav Kahana, Islan Ashray. What do you mean? We have debt, and therefore we come to the city of Pom Nahara to collect from the people, and therefore that's why we're here. Now, while we happen to be here collecting different items, we want to sell our items in the meantime. But if we're not allowed to sell our items, what are we supposed to do? Amr Lahu, he said to them, Zilu, Zimnu, Shir Chayu Saichu. Fine, you need to make a few dollars while you wait to collect your debts. That amount you're allowed to sell. Till you've collected your ashra, your debts. Vazlitu, and then you go. Meaning, really, you're not allowed to do what you're doing. You're tightening. You're saying that you have a particular problem, so allow you to sell your stuff just because until you're able to collect your debts. Says the Gemara, another story. Rav Dimi Minardai. Icy Groigreis. He brought dried figs, bisfina by a boat, normally exclusive to Rava. So the Reish Klusa said to Rava, go and see, go check into Rav Dimi. If this Rav Dimi is a Talmud Chacham, then Nakalei Shuka, allow that, tell him that he should sell in the shuk and no one else. Amrle Rava, said Rava l'Ravada Barava, Poik Tayila Bekankana. So Rava said to Rav Adbarav, who was his Talmud. So again, Rav Dimi came to sell his stuff. The Reish Klusa told Rava, go check into Rav Dimi. Rava says to his Talmud, go and smell the keg. Go check. Rav Dimi, that's what it means, smell the keg. Not really smells keg, but rather go look into Rav Dimi. See if he's a Talmud Chacham. He went to Rav Dimi and he asked, Pil Shabala Kfifa of an elephant swallowed a basket, mitzris of willow, Vakia der Bezarei, and then the elephant threw up the basket. Well, he didn't really throw it up, he ejected it through his Bezarei, it's wrecked on the bottom. Mahu, what's the halacha? He asked Rav Dimi, in this such a case, is the basket Mekabel Tuma? Or do we say that since Lamaisa went through the animal, it's no longer considered a basket, and rather now it has the din of excrement and waste, therefore it's not Makabal Tama. Lavi Yadei Rav Dimi did not have a teretz exactly what the story with this basket was. Amar Le, Rav Dimi said to Rav Barava, Mar Neo Rava, are you Rava? Tafach Le Bisandale. So this Talmud of Rava wasn't Rava himself, it was Rav Barava, tapped Rav Dimi's shoe in showing him a negative way. Amar Le, Beidi Dila Rava, Ikatuva. Rava, no. Between me and Rava, there's a tremendous gap. Mial Karchach, Ano Rabach. But he says, what should I tell you? Mial Karchach, Ano Rabach. You have to listen to me. Rabba de Rabach. And Rava is your teacher's teacher, meaning my Rabbi. Lo Nakle Shuka. So they didn't take Rav Dimi to the show because he seemingly wasn't a Talmud Chacham. Pasid Gregor's day, and what happened? The figs of Rav Dimi got spoiled. Also, like I made Rav Yosef Amrle Chazi Mar. My Avdili, you see what they did to me? They don't let me sell my stuff. Amrle Rav Yosef Rav Dimi Man Deloy Shala Anita Demalka Deadoim. So Rav Yosef said to Rav Dimi, the one who did not wait till Onita the Malka Edom to take Nikama for the Busha of the Melech, the king of Edom, Lo Nishai Lonita, will not wait to take revenge for you. T'chsev, as the Pasuk says, Ka'amar Hashem al Shosha Peshei Moav al Arba'a Lo Yashivenu. Al Sarfa Yatzama is Melech Edom Lashe, those who destroy the bones of the king of Edom, Sid, Noch Nafshe Ravada Beravo. Says the Gemara, guess what happened? Ravada Beravo, who was the Talmud of Rava, who came to test Rav Dimi, died that year. Says the Gemara, Rav Yoseva Amar, 4 lines on the white lines, Ana Nishna, I punished Ravada Beravo, meaning he was punished due to me, Dana Lataise, because I cursed him. I had to say this negative thing that Hashem's not going to delay because Lamaisa, what they did to Rav Dimi. Rav Dimi Narda Amar, Anad Nishta, I'm going to be the one punished. He died on my account. If say Gregorus DD, it was because my fig spoiled, and that's the reason why Lamaisa, he got cursed, therefore he was Nifter. Abaya Amar, Anad Nishna, Damali Rabbanan, you know why? For Ravada Barava would say to the Rabbanan, Adam Gartinu, Karme Be'abaya, instead of chewing bones in the first white line on Chav Beis Amud Aleph Be'abaya in the house of Aya, to Achli Basra Shemena, come and eat juicy meat, Bei Rava in the yeshiva of Rava, that you're going to get more from. The Torah doesn't mean juicy meat versus bones. It means you're going to get more from the Torah of Rava, from that of Abaya. And Abaya said that maybe because of that, the Talmud of Ravada Barava was punished. The Rava Amar, the Rebbe, Ana Nishta, I'm going to be punished. Because when Rava Barava would go to the butcher to buy meat, he would say to the butcher, I will take Basra Makri Deshami Rava for the servants of Rava. And that's the reason why he was punished, because he didn't accord his Rebbe the appropriate honor. Because Rava said he was greater than them. So Rava said maybe that's the reason why he was punished, because he didn't give him the appropriate honor. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Amar Ananisht, and of course each one of these Gedolim are suggesting that it was due to them that Rav Barava was nifter. Rav Nachman Yitzchak in the 4th white line says, Ananishtei, why? Because he was the head of the Kala, meaning the head of all the Shiurim. Kol Yoima Mikmei Deneo Lekala Marit Bahadei Ravada Barava. And every day before Nachman Yitzchak would come into yeshiva, Ravada Barava would be Rayit Abasrei, meaning he would go over the halachas with him. He would chazer over the shir, the Shmaitse. And only afterwards would Nachman would come into the shirim. On that day in Ravada Rava, on that day, on that fateful day of this conversation that he was nifter, Rav Papa and Ravuna Bredi Yeshua took Ravada Rava before he chazered share with Rav Nachman. Why? Because they weren't there at the final shir, and they wanted to know what Rava had said. So Amrle Imran Hani Shmaitza the Meiser Behema. So he asked Ravada Rava to teach over the Shmaitza Meiser Behema with the end of Bechayris. Hey Chamina Rava. How did Rava explain it? Amrlo Achi Amar Rava Vachi Amar Rava. Adahachi. So instead of him chazering shir with me, said Rav Nachman Yitzchak, what happened was Nagli Rav Nachman Yitzchak, as this was going on, it was getting late for Rav Nachman Yitzchak. He started the shir. But Ravada Rava did not come yet, and he always chazer the shir, the Ravada Rava, before giving the shir. Amr le Rav Nachman Yitzchak, come, Dinagan Lon. Come, get up, it's time to give shir. Nagulan Mar, Yasim Mar, it's time for the shir. Amr le ho, Yasimna. Rav Nachman Yitzchak said, no, Yasimna, v'kaminatcha la'arse, the Ravada Rava, I'm sitting and waiting for, literally he said la'arse, for the oroin of Ravada Rava. And guess what happened at that moment? Adahachi, Nafak, went out, excuse me, and then he was nifter. Says the Gemara, Adahachi Nafa Kol Dinachlan Sheder Avad Rava. Call when other Rav was nifter. Mistavra Rav Nachman Yitzchak Anshe, that indeed it was Rav Nachman Yitzchak, the one who used to chazer shear over, and he said, I can't start the shear because I'm waiting for the arain of his to come. That's what caused Rav Adabar Abba, Rav Adabar Abba to be nifter. Fascinating Gemara, and I guess we see how far, how critical everything goes, how such small, seemingly misdeeds could yield such terrible results. We continue with the Mishnah on the bottom of Chav Beis Amud Aleph. After a little bit of this, I guess we'll call it almost a sidebar Agadata, we get back to our original sugya, which is making different items near the walls of a neighbor. Says the Mishnah, someone whose wall is next to the wall of his friend, he's not allowed to put another wall there. Elim kain, unless unless he distanced 4 amos from that wall. And similarly, if you build windows next to your friend's house, you have to make sure that there's either above, below, or in front of them dalid amos. Either you have to make your wall 4 amos higher, 4 amos lower, or at a distance of 4 amos, as you can't block the windows of a neighboring house. We begin with the first part of the Mishnah, that the Mishnah is teaching us that you have to, that someone who mishahaya kaislai, someone kaisla chaverai, you're not allowed to make a second wall. Says the Gemara, from the Mishnah, it sounds like the first wall wasn't a problem. Now you building a second wall, and that is a problem. Says the Gemara, how are you allowed to build the first wall? Amar Rav Yehuda achi kamar. This is what's going on over here as we turn over to Chav Beis Amud Aleph. Haba lismaich lo yismaich. So when it comes to make a wall near the friend's wall, you're not allowed to. It doesn't mean that there was already a wall. It means that's what you're coming to do. And the Mishnah is teaching us you're not allowed to do it unless you distance it away. Continue asking Akasha, Maskiv Larava, 1 second. Very nice, you're telling me you're not allowed to do it. But what did the Mishnah say? The Mishnah said clearly that what are we talking about? We're talking about a case of Mishaya, someone who had his wall next to his friend's wall, and what you're doing is you're coming to make another wall. So very nice that you're explaining that the case is the wall at first, but that's clearly not what's going on in the Mishnah. So Ella Rava says, Rava 4 lines down, Vinafal. That's what's going on. That one had a wall, and his wall fell down. Then lo yismaich, lo kaisel acher. You can't make another wall. Elim kain, unless mimenu dalid amos. Unless you make it dalid amos away from his wall. My timer. What's the reason? You already had a wall. The wall fell down. You want to make another wall. You're not allowed to. Why not? Says the Gemara, because the ground between the two walls is good to have. You need to have such ground next to each wall. You need to have the wall surrounded with area. And therefore, to put another wall is going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. Now, really what this means, davsha means people walking there. So it's very interesting. Rashi explains what the Gemara is saying over here is that it's good to have people walking between the two walls because as they walk, it softens the earth and then it hardens the earth, which strengthens the wall. And therefore, you have to make sure when you put up the new wall, it's at a distance of Dalid Amos. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav. Says Rav, let's delve a drop deeper into halacha. I'm not putting a wall within 4 amos of your friend's wall. Rav Aishi Amar, he argues. So we have a machlekes. Rav says this din is only by a kaisel of a garden, but of a chatzir you're allowed to put it close by. And Rav Aishi says no, you're never allowed to put it close by. Amar Rav Yesi Bar Chanina says, Rav Yesi Bar Chanina v'loi pligi. There's no machlekes really between Rav and Rav Aishi. How's there no machlekes? V'loi pligi abir yishena habir chadasha. When we're talking about an Ir Yeshana, that's when you only have to distance from the garden wall, but not to a chutzner wall. Why? Because since it's an old town, the wall doesn't really need to be strengthened anymore. It's already hardened by everyone who's been walking there over all the years. But in Ir Chadasha, people walking near the walls enable the wall to become stronger, and therefore you have to distance it Dalet Amos. Says the Gemara Tanan. We learned in our Mishnah, part B of our Mishnah dealt with windows next to your neighboring field. Bein mamala bein lamata min kenegdan arba amois. V'tani alon, we learned on the Mishnah. Mil malon k'dei yatzis v'yireh. What's the reason you can't build the wall when it's above? It has to be dalet amois. Is so that one cannot lean over and look at his friend's window. Mil matan underneath shlayama, they can't stand on the wall and look inside v'yireh. Mikenegdan shlayapel taima, and opposite the wall. Kenegdan shlayapel, you can't darken your friend's wall by putting your friend's window by putting a wall right next to his window. Says the Gemara, sounds like the reason is because you can't darken your friend's house, but because of people walking next to the wall, it's not a problem. So asks the Gemara, we just said a moment ago, the reason why you have to put walls not close by is because it's good to walk next to the wall. But we see over here that seemingly that's not true. We see over here that seemingly it's only because you don't want to cause the light to your friend's house to be diminished. Says the Gemara, we're talking about over here is that the wall is perpendicular to the friend's wall. So in such a situation, there's no worry about people walking by, of hardening the ground. Therefore, only worried about the light and the seeing through the window. The Kama. Says the Gemara, and how far do you have to go according to the Braisa? Amar Yevoi Chamua de Ashyan bar Nidvach Mishmei de Rav Kemole Rechev Chaloin. The distance of the width of the window. Says the Gemara, 1 second, Vale Meitzitz, but you're going to be able to look in, cause it's going to be seemingly one tefach away, a standard window, that's how wide it is. So you'll be able to lean over and look into the window. The case is, it's a sloping wall. It slopes down towards the window. Anyone who has any of the Daf Yomi's farm, you'll see nice pictures of this. And therefore, you're not going to be able to actually stand or lean on the wall. And therefore, we have no concern that's going to cause a situation that you're going to be able to see into your friend's field. We asked the Gemara further 1 second, but our Mishnah said Loikasha kami ruach achas kan mishtei ruchos. The Bryce is referring to only on one side, so therefore there's not that much light blocking. And therefore, one tefach is enough. The Mishnah is talking about both sides. Therefore, you need dalet amos. Tashema v'sakoisal min hamazlicha dalet amos. Says the Bryce, a wall you have to distance from the gutter. Dalet amos. Kidei. What's the reason? Shei zoikev es asulam. The reason is so you could prop up a ladder if you ever have to clean out the gutter. Time, what seemingly Misham Sulam, Amashab Dav Shaloya, again, Kasha and Rava on part A of the Shir, on the fact, or part A of the second half of the Shir of this Mishnah, the fact you need to be able to walk by the wall to harden the wall. Says the Gemara, no, Hachamay Eskina b'mazalicha mishupas. Again, it's slanted. Dimisham Dav Shahu, Hakaz Lavasi Tute. People can walk underneath the overhang, so we don't have to worry about davsha. So we're seeing over here, basically, there's always both concerns that have to be taken care of. There's the davsha, and then there is, which strengthens the wall. Then there's the practicality of being able to see through the window, etc. We'll pick it up from the Mishnah, B'siyata de Shmaya.